Kishimoto loves to use elements of real-world folklore, history, religion, mythology, and there are so many of these references and nods, it's almost difficult to go through them all. But today, I want to go through one that's kinda different from the rest, which is the Rinnegan and the Six Paths. Because unlike most of the other references Kishimoto uses, the Rinnegan and the Six Paths are not drawn upon Japanese folklore. Kishimoto goes elsewhere to draw inspiration for the Rinnegan and the Six Paths, and that's very interesting because the Rinnegan is supposed to feel very different and alien to the Naruto universe. Well, not that kind of alien, but it is supposed to be something that's not normal. And because the Naruto characters in the Naruto world are very much in this Japanese-inspired setting, when you draw inspiration from something that's outside of Japan, that's gonna feel a little different. And that's exactly how the Rinnegan is supposed to feel. If you take a look at the Mangekyo Sharingan abilities, the most famous ones, Tsukiyomi, Amaterasu, Susanoo, those are all Shinto gods, and Shinto is a Japanese religion. But the Rinnegan and the Six Paths draw from Hinduism and Buddhism. And because the types of references Kishimoto uses for the Rinnegan, it makes Pain especially feel like this godlike being. The man who has control over life and death. He is supposed to feel invincible, especially before the fight against Naruto to ramp up the tension. And yes, I know some people will say that actually, if Jiraiya knew the powers of Pain, and if he had full intel going into the fight, Jiraiya would have beaten Pain in the Rain Village. And of course, people bring up the fact that Pain himself said so after he killed Jiraiya. Oh, if he knew our secret, we would be defeated. But he's not talking about his abilities specifically. Think about this for a second. What is Pain's secret? His big secret is that the real one is not among them. That's what Jiraiya figures out at the very end of the fight. That's not an ability that Pain possesses that would give Jiraiya intel. Oh, okay, I have to counter Shinra Tensei this way. It's a 5-second cooldown. No, this is amazing intel, but it's not supposed to be something used mid-battle. What Pain is referring to here is that if Jiraiya knew his secret, that the real one is not among them, and that the Pain bodies are just, well, bodies, Jiraiya could sneak up on them and catch the Pain bodies off guard while they're sleeping. And then taking care of Nagato, who's frail and weak and can barely move, wouldn't be too much of a problem, even though he possesses all the powers of the Rinnegan once he loses the paths. But the important thing is that if Jiraiya catches the paths of Pain while they're sleeping in those weird, cylindrical-looking chambers, there isn't much they can do about it. They're defenseless. And that's something most people forget about, because let's be real, Kishimoto used that scene with the chambers to set up the mystery of Pain, but we only see them for a 2-page spread and that's it. What's important to know is that usually Nagato is only using one Pain body, and most often that's gonna be the Deva Path. The others are gonna be sleeping in the chambers, and I'm gonna have to be real with you guys for a second. Those actually look pretty good for you to sleep on. Obviously the paths are not really sleeping because they're not alive, but for somebody like me who's a very light sleeper, those sound very nice. Because I usually wake up 3 to 4 times every night. I wish there was a way for me to, just go to sleep and not wake up until the next morning like the Paths of Pain there. What if I told you there is a way for you to do that with today's sponsor, Manta Sleep? I've made a discovery these days. You don't have to be traveling on a flight or something like that to wear a sleep mask. No, if you're just sleeping on your bed and you use a sleep mask, that's going to improve the quality of your sleep substantially. But I never really thought about it because all the sleep masks that I've ever used before were terrible. They pressed against the eyes, they were uncomfortable, and many times they didn't even block all the light. But I've been using the Manta Pro sleep mask this last week, and let me tell you, it makes a difference. First, because the mask is extremely comfortable, made with premium materials. They do not press against your eye, they have a great feel, and you can customize the mask to fit around your eyes perfectly, so it blocks all the light, and it sits there very comfortably. You can also customize the mask around your head, so it doesn't press against your face. And the Manta sleep masks are made in a way that you can sleep in any position wearing them. So now I'm able to sleep the entire night, waking up at most one time, and many times I don't wake up until the morning, which is great for your health. It makes you so much more energetic during the day, which is going to make you more productive and overall just happier. So head to the link in the description below and use coupon DYGO for 10% off on your Manta Sleep products and improve the quality of your sleep dramatically. Thank you Manta Sleep for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. Rinnegan means the Eye of Samsara. And what is that, you may ask? Well, Samsara is a word in Sanskrit. And Sanskrit is a classical language belonging to the Indo-European branch of the Indo-European languages, which arose in northwestern South Asia in the Indian subcontinent. And this is a language that's sacred for Hinduism. So in Sanskrit, samsara means wandering as well as world. And when you combine those two meanings, you get something like the cyclic change, as if the world is wandering through a cycle, which makes a lot of sense when you take a look at Pain's character in the Rinnegan. After all, Pain's entire thing is trying to stop the cycle of hatred by causing pain among others until they understand each other completely. Of course, Naruto comes up with a different answer, but that was Pain's initial intent. And samsara is many times described as the cycle of aimless drifting, wandering, or mundane existence. In the Naruto world, this mundane existence is violence. A cycle of violence that perpetuates hatred because people will try to take revenge upon those who took away people they love. And then those other people who got somebody taken away because somebody else was taking revenge is gonna do the same thing, and the cycle will repeat itself until the end of time. Ironically enough, the Rinnegan was just another step in the cycle. It was just perpetuating the hatred and the pain through Nagato's very twisted ideology. And in Buddhist mythology, this cycle can be illustrated by 6 realms of existence in which sentient beings can reincarnate on. 6 realms, 6 paths. That's where the powers of pain come from. Each of those paths represent one of those realms in which a person can reincarnate. Or should I say a sentient being, because in Buddhist mythology and also Hinduism, not every sentient being is a human being. And among those 6 realms, you're going to reincarnate in one that's decided by the karma you've achieved in your previous life. Your good or bad deeds are going to weigh in on where you're going to reincarnate, and depending on what you did in your previous life, you're gonna have a better or worse time in your next reincarnation. The 6 realms are very different between each other. Now, from worst to best possible reincarnations, you have the world of hell, or Naraka, then the world of hungry ghosts, or Preta, the world of animals, or Tiriagioni, the world of warlike demigods, or Asura, the world of human beings, or Manusya, and the world of gods, or celestial beings, or Deva. So you can see a clear ascension from hell itself to a world of celestial beings in the cycle of reincarnation. And yeah, this is Buddhism. Samsara has a lot more to do with Hinduism, but those two religions are very mingled within each other. Kind of like how the Abrahamic religions have a lot of similarities and share similar elements in their lore and everything. Now, the Deva realm, the human realm, and the Asura realm are known as the 3 benevolent destinies. So they are the good destinies for a reincarnation, where beings experience varying degrees of virtue, pleasure, and pain. The world of animals, the world of hungry ghosts, and the world of hell are referred to as the unbenevolent destinies. The elements that form your karma that are going to decide where you're going to reincarnate are considered in bodily, oral, or mental volitional acts. And the most common way for you to end up in one of the non-benevolent destinies is hatred, greed, and ignorance. Now, if you pay attention to Naruto, you're going to know that there's actually a 7th path, which is the outer path, or Gedo. But this one is a little bit different because, yeah, it's an outer path. It's something completely different from the 6 paths in the Naruto universe and also in real-world lore. And ironically enough, Pain is a guy that has a lot of hatred and even, you can say, ignorance. I wouldn't say he's too greedy because these are the 3 poisons: hatred, greed, and ignorance, but because Pain suffers from such hatred, it makes it very ironic that he calls himself a god. Literally so when he's dashing at Jiraiya when the 6 paths descend upon him. For if karma works correctly in the Naruto world, he could never reincarnate in the realm of Devas. Well, I guess at least up until Naruto taught no jutsus him. So now let's go path by path, talk about how they work in real-world mythology and then relate it to the Naruto universe. And we're going to start with the lowest realm and make our way up until the highest one. So let's begin with the world of hell, or Naraka. Naraka is a term from Buddhist cosmology that's referred to in English as hell or purgatory, and I'm being born into Naraka as a direct result of its accumulated actions, aka karma, will reside there for a finite period of time until that karma has achieved its full result. meaning you're gonna have to spend all your bad karma there in hell, suffering essentially, until you're able to leave it. After the karma is used up, you will be reborn in one of the higher worlds as a result of karma that had not yet ripened. So you can find some solace in the fact that you're not gonna stay there forever, because everything is cyclical. It is just the nature of it, that you are going to be there in the bad place, but eventually you're gonna leave it. So essentially, from a Buddhist point of view, suffering in hell is just one of the 6 ways of living. We are now here in the human world, which is pretty nice comparatively speaking. Hell is just a lower karma tier. And when we take a look at the Naraka Path of pain, well, he uses the king of hell. People suffering through hell in Buddhist mythology are usually depicted as frail, extremely thin, and with their tongues pulled out. Does that remind you of anything? When the king of hell pulls your tongue as the Naraka Path is interrogating you, if you lie, he's gonna rip it off, because lying is a great sin. It's going to lower your karma and bring you to hell. And interestingly enough, the depictions of people that are in hell are so thin and malnourished looking that they remind me a lot of what Nagato looks like when he is in that state of his. So essentially, one could say that Nagato is already living through hell. He just doesn't know it yet, which is again ironic and thematically very sound. Moving on to the second worst realm, the world of hungry ghosts, or Preta. Preta is the name that refers to a supernatural being described in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism, as well as Chinese folklore, as undergoing suffering greater than that of humans, particularly an extreme level of hunger and thirst. You're suffering that way in the realm of Preta, and in order for you to pass into the cycle of karmic reincarnation and ascend, the deceased family must engage in a variety of rituals and offerings to guide the suffering spirits into the next life. If the family does not do the correct funeral rites, which last for an entire year, the soul of the person who died could remain suffering as a Preta for the rest of eternity. So the only way for you to ascend out of Preta is if your family does the stuff that it has supposed to do correctly, and your funeral rites and everything. What if your family dies in the way? Well, I don't know. That sounds bad. Regardless, Pretas are believed to have been false, corrupted, compulsive, deceitful, jealous, or greedy people in a previous life. As a result of their karma, they are afflicted with an insatiable hunger for a particular substance or object. Traditionally, this is something repugnant or humiliating, such as bodies, corpses, or faces. Though in more recent stories, this can be pretty much anything that's bizarre. In addition to having insatiable hunger for an aversive item, Pretas are also said to have disturbing visions. Pretas and human beings occupy the same physical space, and while humans looking at a river would see clear water, Pretas see the same river flowing with an aversive substance. Common examples of such visions include pus and filth. So let's just say being stuck at Preta is not great. Obviously, in the Naruto series, what Preta craves is chakra. The quote-unquote hungry ghost that is the Preta Path allows the user to essentially consume any ninjutsu that's thrown against you, and that will quench your thirst/hunger. It's ironic because the way Preta dies in the fight against Naruto is by absorbing too much sage energy, so I guess you could say that its hunger led to its death, which is kind of the point, right? Obviously, it's good for you to be able to absorb ninjutsu, but in Buddhist mythology, it's not good for you to be a Preta because you're gonna be craving something bad, and in the end, yeah, chakra, in this case sage energy, did really bad to the Preta Path. Moving on to the world of animals, or Tiriagioni. Animals are treated very interestingly in Buddhism, because for Buddhist doctrine, animals are sentient beings. The position and treatment of animals in Buddhism is important for the light it sheds on Buddhist perception of their own relation with the natural world. The doctrine of rebirth held that any human could be reborn as an animal, and any animal could be reborn as a human. And in cosmological terms, the animals were believed to inhabit a distinct quote-unquote world separated from humans not by space but by a state of mind. And that's why they would act so differently from us humans. This world of animals is called Tiriagioni in Sanskrit, and to be reborn as an animal was considered to be one of the unhappy rebirths, usually involving more than human suffering. Buddhist lore depicts many sufferings associated with the animal world. Even where humans are not present, they are attacked and eaten by other animals or live in fear of it. They endure extreme changes of environment throughout the year, and they have no security of habitation. And those who live among humans are usually slaughtered for their bodies or taken and forced to work with many beatings until they are slaughtered at the end of their lives. So yeah, overall you would understand why this is one of the bad reincarnation realms. In East Asian Buddhism, and particularly Tibet and China, the release of animals, particularly birds or fish, into their natural environment became an important way of demonstrating Buddhism piety. Which sort of reminds me of the Animal Path, summoning all those creatures and sending them wild. Now, obviously the relationship between the Path of Pain and the realm of the animals is very clear here. The Animal Path is capable of summoning all those terrible monsters, which are essentially bestial versions of several real-world animals. And you can see they are all pierced by the Rinnegan rods, they depict the Rinnegan itself. Most importantly, they don't seem to be happy or enjoying themselves, which makes a lot of sense with what I just described to you, that the animal realm is not a great existence. They are either going to be predated by other animals or humans are going to explore them, and that's exactly what Nagato does. He explores the animals, he forces them to fight for him. They don't have a choice. You see the Rinnegan rods are piercing all over their bodies, and you know that the Rinnegan rods control the bodies of whoever they're piercing. Furthermore, Nagato even uses their eyes to see through, because the Rinnegan link is not only between the 6 paths of pain, but also with the summons and the King of Hell itself. That's why Itachi had to use his kunais to pierce through the King of Hell and through Nagato's summons in the war arc to blind him, so that he could sneak behind Nagato and save Naruto and be from their certain deaths there. So that was another very interesting way to include another path into the Naruto story. Now, moving on to the first good realm for reincarnation, the world of warlike demigods, or Asura. Asuras are a class of beings in Indian religions. They are described as power-seeking beings related to the more benevolent devas. And you can also call them Shura. That's why Shurado is the actual Japanese name. Shura meaning Asura and Do meaning path. Asura Path. In its Buddhist context, the word is translated to Titan or anti-god. That's a cool word, anti-god, I like it. According to Hindu texts, the Asuras are in constant fear of Devas. Asuras are described in Indian texts as powerful superhuman demigods with good or bad qualities. There are some texts that mention the Asuras as being more evil quote-unquote gods that compete against the Devas who are good and benevolent gods. But I like the interpretation that they are terrified of the Devas and they would essentially serve them. Because remember what happens in the Pain arc when Pain, the Deva Path, is fighting against Kakashi. Nagato realizes that Kakashi is not your average jonin of the Leaf Village. No, this guy is dangerous. And the Deva Path was fighting a 1v1 against Kakashi, which is not ideal. Yes, obviously the Deva Path is the strongest path of pain, but I'm gonna get into that later, but Kakashi could take care of him. Especially when Pain was not going to use catastrophic Shinra Tensei or Chibaku Tensei, so what happens? Pain/Nagato calls in the Asura Path to aid the Deva Path. And during the fight, actually towards the end of it, the Asura Path uses itself as a shield to protect the Deva Path from Kakashi's Raikiri, saving the Deva Path from destruction. So it's essentially this lower tier demigod working for a higher god, the Deva. And when it comes to the Asura Path's powers, he has weapons of war and destruction. Because Asuras are being craving power, they're very warlike and are going to fight for said power. So once more, thematically it makes sense. Moving on to the world of human beings, or Manushya. As I said before, in Buddhism, humans are just one type of sentient being, that is, a being with a mind stream. In Sanskrit, Manushya means an animal with a mind. And for Buddhism, the mind is the collection of past experiences with an ability of memory and recollection. And these animals that have a mind, humans, us, are considered to have a disease, something that's not terribly natural, something that departs the soul, leaving its universal enlightenment in favor of a fearful behavior, fluctuating between the states of heaven and hell. So we're essentially in the middle because we have the ability to remember. Does that remind you of anything? Well, the human path in the Naruto series can read the minds of people he touches. Having a mind is a human quality, a quality of this realm, so reading somebody else's mind makes a lot of sense for the power the human path will get. But that's not all, because once you read the mind of the person, you must extract their soul. And you could say thematically speaking, that's because essentially if you are reading somebody else's mind, you're getting their memories, and therefore they are no longer unique to them. The experience that makes you human, your capability of remembering things, is going to be shared by someone else, making you no longer unique, making you no longer human, so your soul leaves your body and departs. Now, because humans stay between heaven and hell, the human path can actually do something quite interesting with the soul of somebody he takes. And that's mentioned by Kabuto in the work, because the human path can actually steal somebody's soul and store it in the King of Hell, essentially throwing it to one of the sides. And also, we're gonna see later that you can do something else with a person's soul after you remove it, which is to bring them back to their body and revive them through Rinne Tensei. Moving on to the highest realm of reincarnation, the world of gods or celestial beings, aka Deva. In Buddhism, Deva is a type of celestial being or god who shares the godlike characteristics of being more powerful, longer lived, and in general much happier than humans, although the same level of veneration is not paid to them as to Buddhas. Devas are beings that achieved a higher form of existence. Through their experiences and good karma built up, they achieve a higher state of being, and therefore they achieve more power. And that really fits the character of the Deva Path, because yeah, obviously the Deva Path is by far the strongest path of pain. He's the one who feels the most godlike, and his abilities really represent that. Shinra Tensei, or Almighty Push. You know, Almighty Push is not a great translation for Shinra Tensei. The better translation would be Divine Punishment, which just sounds so much better. Both from a thematic and just rule of cool perspective, like, Divine Punishment. Can you imagine Pain saying this instead of Almighty Push? I don't know, putting the word push in the jutsu there just makes it feel a little less divine. Bansho Tenin with Universal Pull, that's fine, I'm fine with that one. And then there's Chibaku Tensei, or Catastrophic Planetary Destruction. Alright, that one's fine. But because Pain says Almighty Push so many times, or Shinra Tensei, it would just be much better if he said just Divine Punishment. Cause you understand, you don't have to say you were pushing people, no, the punishment part is far more interesting than the physical thing that's happening. It's far more thematic and fitting of a godlike being like a Deva. So they really screwed up the English translation of Shinra Tensei, because a Deva, as a benevolent god, is able to dish out punishment to those who do not comply with the good qualities he is looking for. And yeah, it just makes complete sense for Kishimoto to make the Deva Path the main path of pain and the one who Nagato is using Yahiko's body for. He will give Yahiko's body to the strongest path he has so that he can lead the Akatsuki. Now you may think the Deva Path was the last path because we've been through all 6 of them, but I mentioned there was an additional path, the Outer Path. And this one is interesting because the Outer Path, or Tirthika, refers to non-Buddhist heretics in Buddhist texts, followers of other ancient Indian religions and traditions like Jainism or Hinduism, or someone who leads others to a sacred place. Which is interesting because one of the main jutsus of the Outer Path is the Rinne Tensei. I guess you could say guiding them to a sacred place would be to bring their souls back and guide them back to their body, reviving them, or even reforming an entire body in the case of Madara in the work. Regarding the Outer Path, one who wields the Rinnegan is said to exist outside the realm of life and death. They are regarded as the 7th path of pain, the Outer Path, and wield the power to control life and death. With this power, you can use Rinne Tensei, which translates to Samsara of Heavenly Life Technique. See, Samsara appearing again, the cycle, this cyclic nature of life. It's as if you are bringing somebody back to continue it. The other ability that the Outer Path has is to create the black receivers, or what I like to call them, the Rinnegan rods. And by transmitting their chakra into the receivers, the user can bind anyone they touch through the power of the Outer Path. So it's not just the paths of pain or even the animal path summons that you can control with the Rinnegan rods, you can also control your enemies, and that's what Nagato tries to do against Naruto when Naruto comes by to talk to him. Nagato pierces one of the rods on Naruto, and Naruto manages to resist, which really impresses Nagato, especially because Naruto was very close to him, meaning that he would have a lot of leverage with his chakra, and the transmission would be much more potent because of the distance. And quite obviously, the outer path is a path outside the main 6, meaning that its abilities will be much different. Another ability that the outer path has is the ability to summon the Gedomazo, which translates to the demonic statue of the outer path. Gedo means outer path. You could almost say summoning such a foul thing could be considered heresy, and in the real world, those who follow the outer path are considered heretics, people who do not follow the doctrine of Buddhism and the 6 cycles of reincarnation. In the work, Hagoromo uses the outer path to summon all previous Kage souls to summon Team 7 back into the real world. The previous Kage don't regain their bodies, but they stay there as chakra creatures, essentially. And then Hagoromo uses the outer path to release the Hokages from their Edo Tensei bodies so their souls can go free. So this path, well, this one may be the most powerful one on the Deva Path. Out of the 6 paths, the Deva Path is the most powerful one, but overall, it's going to be the outer path. This path requires so much more power than the other paths that you can see that Madara cannot use the Rinne Tensei when he is in Edo Tensei. He needs to be at his full capacity. He needs his real body to use something like that. Or he needs somebody that's actually alive. That's why he had to control Obito by using Black Zetsu in order to be revived through Rinne Tensei. Click on the video showing up on your screen if you want to find out why Sasuke cannot deactivate his Rinnegan. Don't forget to like this video. Please subscribe and ring notifications as well. Those are very helpful and they only take you 5 seconds to do. And thank you so much for watching.